Okay,
I have a book I can recommend.
Mm-hmm.
It's right here beside me.
Ready to get started?
It's good to have another book handy. Okay. Is it recording?
Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, this is Dr. Meredith Armbrust, clinical psychologist currently practicing therapy fully remote. She has 20 years of experience in her field. Could you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Well, before the pandemic started, I worked in an office like a lot of people. I mostly did therapy and some evaluations and assessments um, for things like adoption or workplace, like employment opportunities. The therapy that I did in office was with adults, adolescents, kids, couples, families. Um, this Since the pandemic, I, like a lot of people, moved to a remote situation where you do virtual therapy. It's something I thought wouldn't work before that time, something I thought I'd never do, but I found that it works really well. There may be people who don't prefer virtual for something like therapy or counseling, but it also enables a lot of people who would never be able to get to an appointment for some reason because there's no one in their community, or because they have kids and they can't get childcare, or the sort of time cost of driving to an appointment in an office, meeting for almost an hour, and then driving back was just a huge time commitment. I often see people on their lunch break or later in the evening, or they might have a kid who's napping that they couldn't get childcare for, but they can do counseling or therapy now because they can access that remotely. Oh, but I don't see kids right now. I guess I would add that. Kids is Seeing kids is something that you often want to be able to get down on the floor and like play with Legos or play a game, that sort of thing. So I think the doing it virtually does limit that, but um, there are ways to even see families who are not in the same location, which I wouldn't have been able to do really before the pandemic. So
Therapists such as yourself work on a variety of mental and emotional challenges with your clients. Have you noticed any changes in the types of challenges people have come to you with during the pandemic? And if so, could you explain further upon that a little bit?
sure, there's been a lot of changes. I think we probably can all think about how our lives changed when the pandemic began in early 2020. Um, and, we're not all that different, really. Some of the things that I think were highlighted, though, were um, folks that were at home all the time and may not have roommates or family there. So someone who had like an active life where they would go to work and maybe go see friends afterwards for dinner or be out on the weekends. Those were people who were sitting at their dining room table working remotely by themselves, maybe calling into video conferences, but they might not get a hug for weeks because of the social distancing. They might not even go to their local coffee shop that might have been part of their work routine, or see people in passing, in the hallway at work. So there was a lot more loneliness, and I think that led to depression. Also anxiety. There were a lot of people who were concerned literally about the health issues around the pandemic, and that was something that created more anxiety, not knowing, certainly not being able to see family members, especially if they were sick. And the other thing was probably the pressure of doing things like educating your kids, holding a job, managing responsibilities, and doing a lot of other things that previously you had help with. So maybe people really count on someone to help with meals or childcare, and that was out of the question for a long time. So you had to manage, video conferences with babies who might start to cry or wake up from a nap. As well as educate your kindergartner who really needed hands-on help to get those kinds of things done. People had to make all kinds of sacrifices at that time, and that was a lot of pressure and stress for folks.
I understand COVID caused a massive shortage in the healthcare services across the board. Did you see any shortages in your field, specifically access to therapy?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, as I said, the virtual and like kind of telehealth, that opened things up for a lot of people. On the other hand, I know for me, I needed to back off my work because um, I needed to go help my kids with their homework or their classwork or help them log on to things because we were using digital platforms and or the signal would drop and they get frustrated or not know how to log on. Like there were a lot of ways that I needed to be present for my kids, that caused me to reduce the time that I spent with clients. And as I mentioned before, I stopped seeing kids, so or kids and parents together. I might be able to help parents, but I didn't really see kids virtually. Um, See, I guess the other thing is that it was very hard to get appointments too. And it was hard to manage all that. Everybody had to really kind of come together and figure out how to make these systems work. That went beyond just mental health providers, but people figured it out, and even clients were very generous when we didn't know exactly how to make things work well. But people made sacrifices and adjusted and were flexible, and that was very helpful.
Given what you've said so far, do you have any thoughts on the future of impacts caused by COVID on our mental health and, as you said, the stress and the challenges it's caused on our healthcare system?
Mm. Well, I think that COVID caused us to implement technology in healthcare and other ways a lot more quickly than we were ready to. And I think, to be really optimistic about it and positive, it was a really good thing. I mean, like as I said in the beginning, I think there are a lot of people. I can think of someone who was 9 months pregnant with two young children who never would have come into the office to see me, but we were able to meet because she could meet from her bedroom, honestly, at a time when her kids were napping or watching a TV show and safe and sound, and not, so that kind of those kinds of changes have persisted. Um, Certainly the government had to hurry up and make some allowances, state by state or governed by the state that you practice in, to allow some of these things, these accommodations, I guess. And since then, the professional organizations and the government, that regulates these things have continued to kind of adjust. They've pulled back a little bit, and that's probably right. To make sure that people are practicing within their limits and take care of the public good. Um, I know that that's true in other areas as well, but I certainly can't speak to all of them. I don't know if that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. This has been Dr. Meredith Armbrust, clinical psychologist practicing for Mind Body Works Incorporated. Thank you so much.
Thanks.